an August day, and I was working at every July and August in our town. There's the thoroughbred racetrack. It's a historic horse racing track for thoroughbreds. And these past couple years, we've hosted the Belmont Stakes. It's a legendary place. I mean, that's, from Seattle Slough to Man of War to Secretariat, they've all been through here. So it's a big, people come up from the city and they stay here they double the population of the town. So there's a demand for more police. And my brothers were both cops at the time. And I got hired as a peace officer to do crowd control traffic. All right, and let's out at about 5:30 in the afternoon. And so I'm off duty, and my mom had said, "Come on over when you get out of work. We're gonna have a barbecue. We got family coming over. I'm gonna grill up some burgers, dogs, swordfish steaks." My mom was the greatest human that I've ever known. And I said, "Yeah, all right, I'll come over right after work." And in between the racetrack and her house was my apartment. I would go in and change my clothes or shower normally because I've been standing in the road all day, directing traffic and breaking up fights. But I didn't want to waste time. I wanted to get over by the pool and chill the fuck out. So I drove straight to my mom's. I got there about quarter to six. I'm only like 2 miles from the racetrack, and I come in. My mother was out in the backyard with my aunt and her son, and it's a beautiful day. Sean is sleeping. Our dad's not home from work yet. Dad works in Albany, 30 miles away. So I on uh, plopped down on a chaise lounge, kind of laying back by the pool, even though I'm still dressed in my pseudo cop uniform. The patch on the flag and the blue and the whole deal and the dress shoes, which are killing my feet, but I didn't want to take the time to change. It's good to just put them up on this chaise lounge. And mom hasn't started grilling. She's waiting for Sean to get up. And I'm just sitting there. The rest of them are talking, and Missy's son is in the pool, splashing around. And for some reason, I pick up a newspaper next to me on the table. Now, that's not unusual, right? But it was our papers are such shitty papers. Saratogian is like 8 pages, never any news. And I could care less what's in it ever. But for some reason, I picked it up. And I opened it to the middle. So you have to have it wide open, like your arms spread apart. And kind of like the way in the 1950s sitcoms, the way the dads would, you know, like My Three Sons, if you ever saw it, it's a dad who would come home, open his paper, and use it as a barrier so he didn't have to deal with his obnoxious kids. It was just a great way for dads to ignore their parental responsibilities in the post-Korean War, America. They worked 40 hours. Why do they have to deal with kids? Anyway, so that's how he would hold his paper. And if he had to, he would like dip one corner of the paper and peer over and see who's bitching at him, and then he would raise the paper back up and canned laughter all around. So I'm holding this paper like this, and I'm laying back in this chaise lounge, reclined. So what I'm really doing is I'm blocking out the entire sky from my view. It's a clear blue, late afternoon. Sun is bright. It's 3 hours from setting, and I'm blocking out the entire sky. And I'm reading the whole 2 pages at once. I'm not even reading it. I'm just sitting there holding it. And it was unusual, but that's what I was doing, right? I couldn't explain it. And then my mother said, "Hey, Chris, there's that UFO you wanted to see." And And just like 2 weeks before on some television show, there was a UFO incident somewhere, and they were talking to the witnesses. Keep in mind, I didn't think I'd ever seen anything, but I remember walking in while my mom was watching and saying, listen to those people. They're telling the truth. Those are not actors. They're telling the truth. I said, and you know what? I believe them. I just really want to see one. And my mom, who was much more aware of what was going on with us than we ever were, she kind of got bent out of shape. She goes, "Oh, you would? Really? Oh, you really want to see one, huh? Oh, how about that? Yeah, wow." And I'm like, "What?" She was getting a little angry. I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Oh, fuck, just never mind. All right, just forget it, forget it." And stomped her cigarette out and was, you know, ugh, just completely frustrated and angry with me. Because she knew, but I didn't. There were periods where I did. There were moments where I did, especially early on when I asked her about it. And she told me, "You can never tell anyone ever. You hear me? You got it?" She was shaking me when I asked about who were those people here last night. She knew. You never, we can never tell anybody. But why? Why? Because they won't believe you. They won't believe us. And I said, like an idiot kid, but it's true. It's real. He goes, they will not believe you. And if you tell anybody that, they're going to take you away from me. They are going to take you away and they're going to give you to some other family. And they won't even ever tell me where you are. And I will never see you again for the rest of my life. And she's upset. So we never tell anybody. And I'm like, okay. Do, do you got it? Hear me? Okay. Okay, mom. I won't. And she was like, you can't tell your father. You can't tell your friends. We never tell anybody. I'm like, okay. All right. You know, okay. Fine. And then to end on a kind of cheery note, like a mom tries to do, she said, besides, it's not that bad. They don't come all that often, right? And I'm like, if you say so, I mean, okay, sure, mom. Sure, it's fine. So here we were on this day in 96. When mom had that discussion with me, it was 1968. Bobby Kennedy had not yet had his brains blown out in a filthy fucking kitchen in a hotel by people that lured him the wrong way so he could be shot before he became president. And yet here we are in 1996. And my mom, when I said I really want to see one of those things, that's how fucking oblivious I was. I remembered more when I was 5 than I did now. Maybe as they go, their control gets stronger. I can't really say. Maybe it's just a mistake when something leaks through. Maybe it's they don't. And the same is true with Sean. The earliest he tried to communicate some of the earliest abductions with mom, dad, and whatever. Maybe they go easy with the mind fucking on little kids so they don't like really damage them. I don't know. Or maybe they figure nobody's going to believe a little kid anyway. Some little kid said he saw monsters. That would be about every kid in the world. I don't know. But there I was in the living room watching mom watch a TV show like Oprah or something where people are talking about the UFO they saw up close. And I believed him. I said, "Oh, I really want to see one of those." And she got bent out of shape. And 2 weeks later, there we are by the pool. And I'm holding up a newspaper and I'm blocking everything out, every bit of the sky. like an asshole. I don't know why. And my mom says, "There's that UFO you wanted to see, Chris." And the way she said it, it sounded like she was busting my balls, you know? So I wasn't going to lower the paper and give her the satisfaction. And, it's a mylar balloon or a kite or a couple of birds humping in midair. I don't know. But it just had that intonation of, but maybe she was going to just let me have it. So I didn't lower the paper. And then my aunt, who was next to her, said, she was good looking, redheaded, married to my uncle, and said, "Wait a minute. What is that?" And again, I don't look up. I think she's playing along. And then my mom said, "Well, I don't know." And I know my mom. Everyone knows what's in their mom's voice. And my mom was confused. She was not sure what was going on. So finally, I think, well, you know what? If they went to all this trouble to play out this scenario to fucking prank me, fine. Here I go. I'll play along. And it was almost hard for me to do it, to lower that newspaper. And it was hard because they were making it hard. They didn't want me looking up. That's why they had me pick up the stupid fucking paper in the first place and hold it like I was Fred McMurray in season 3 of My Three Sons when Chip comes in bitching that the girls in school are beating him up or whatever else. Uncle Charlie, Steve, these kids are driving me crazy. Well, it's your fucking job. Keep them fed. I don't have time to go find a wife, so you're in charge of them, Charlie. William Demarest. So I lower the paper, and there in the sky, right fucking in front of us, is this goddamned craft, working its way into reality. I've said it before. The first thing I thought looking at it was that it was far, far away, like a couple of miles away in the sky. Like maybe it was a promotional balloon from the racetrack I was at, which is, they do promotions and shit. I don't know. But the reason I thought it was so far away was because, like, if you ever see a hot air balloon in the distance, they look kind of translucent. The colors are very lighter from all the atmosphere between you and it makes it a little less substantial, a little less focused. And this had that kind of look. It was faded, and to be honest, it was kind of translucent, like you could kind of see behind it. But it was all clear blue sky, so but it seemed insubstantial, and it was warbling. It was warbling, like if you ever saw something miles away through the wind, it can distort. The atmosphere itself can distort your vision, um, or the way an image is perceived over great distances. And that's what I thought it was. And it was warbling like a heat mirage. If you've ever seen a heat mirage off a hot desert road, those wavering lines that go up and distort the rest of your vision, like the road further ahead is all warbling. It kind of had that thing going on, but it wasn't just straight up and down like heat mirage. It was like the whole image in each direction was warbling, and and then um it also, while in those early stages, it was kind of flashing, like reflecting light. So there's light coming through, and but then it started to get more in focus and more substantial. And as it did, I realized it was not miles away. It was right there. It was right over our fucking house, over our fence, and the neighbor next to us. That's where it was, and it became more substantial. I'm standing there, agape, and And it went from like this faded gray thing to a sharper gray, metallic disc with strong shadows and strong highlights. Like it wasn't till that point really in our in our atmosphere to the point where it was casting shadows or reflecting the sun. But now it was. And it was suddenly it was chrome bright. And it was right there, completely solid. Like, I don't know. It now was right there and real. And it was spinning. The top half was spinning one way, the bottom half was spinning another way. And it was exuding this fucking wake of almost invisible energy. Um, if it wasn't a beautiful, clear day, like cloudless, and this was framed completely against the blue, I wouldn't have. And I'm watching this extraordinary thing of, and I didn't even think it was a flying saucer at that point. I thought it looked like maybe a hot air balloon of the Death Star that had like deflated, so it wasn't round, and it was kind of pancake disc shaped. That's what I was reaching for because I thought I'd never seen anything before in my life. And then it became pretty clear it was a fucking flying saucer. And I was like, what? You mean flying saucers are real? Are you fucking kidding me? It's ridiculous. This is ridiculous. But if it wasn't such a clear day, I wouldn't have noticed that coming off of the craft um, was like a bit of a discoloration to the air, like a like if a motorboat is leaking motor oil, it leaves a little bit of a trail of oily in the wake, as it's floating. And it was coming off this craft, and the only way I noticed it is the color. The sky was like azure blue, like pure blue, but this wake, which was transparent, was kind of a very light violet, and I was shocked. And then once you see it all the way around. You know, all the way around it. You see it. It's like, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Magic Eye posters, where it was just a lot of noise and distortion. People would go buy them for like $20 back when people put shit on their walls. It was a magic. And you had to there was an image inside it, hidden amongst the geometric lines and the curves. And you had to relax your eye. And then you go, oh, there it is. It's a dragon fucking a lion. And you see it. And until you see it, you don't see it. And I saw it. I saw this distortion around this craft. And I'll tell you, I hope I'm not going on too long because we're getting towards the end. But I noticed that the wake coming around it was causing clumps to form in the air, like boiling waters. But if you boiled water in slow motion and it wasn't water, it was mashed potatoes. It had this lumpy boiling motion. And as it boiled, the little clumps would burst and strands would retreat away from it to the edges of the distortion, which was just kind of like the wave coming off it, but it's drifting. And then, it would tear it apart, and then new mashed potato clumps of invisible purple, transparent purple would form, and they would slowly pull apart. So, at this point, my mind is just absolute fucking mush. I don't know what to think of anything right now. It's one thing when I'm just looking at this fucking, not Death Star flying saucer. And that's another thing. People disparage witness sightings by saying, oh, they see something, they see a light in the sky. like Neil deGrasse Tyson said about when asked about UFOs. People see a light in the sky and they automatically leap to the conclusion that it's aliens, which is so disingenuous. And on this day, when I had never, to my knowledge, ever seen anything, my mind, when I was looking at it, was running down a checklist of any possible conventional uh, explanation for what was going on. I mean, you don't leap up flying saucer. No, you go a giant balloon. The Death Star balloon is what I. That was the closest thing to reality I could come up with. And that's pretty far off the fucking mark. So then I'm faced with it being a flying saucer, and now I'm looking at what's happening to the air around it, to where this thing comes in contact with our goddamn reality, and that's why I think they're from somewhere else. I've seen them form, and I've seen their effect on art, and I'm watching this, and all I can do at this point is try and be the best reporter I can. I'm really just observing every detail I can, and the duration of this was remarkably long. And there were times I looked at my mother and my aunt, and they're slack-jawed, staring up at it like in a fucking trance, and so was the kid in the pool, just staring and looking at it. I'm like, you know, I'm a little more awake, and I thought I should run and get Sean, but I also know, well, I know that's what I should have done, and I also know that's what I wanted to do, but something told me not to. It said, "You can't just walk away from this. You will never see anything like this again in your life. How could you walk away? You know the minute you do, it's gonna be gone." And I knew enough about UFO sightings to know they were remarkably short duration usually. Just incredibly short, 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 10. So this thing had gone on for 4 or 5 minutes. Easy. 6. And someone told me not to go get Sean, but I wanted to. And then it got weirder. I'm looking at the craft, metallic sphere, spinning 2 different ways. And there's a black band around the center that is inset. It's not a band that sticks out. It is inset, so the 2 upper halves, like a yo-yo, like where the string is, but not that far in, is just black. And I got up and I walked over to the end of the yard, uh, which brought me about 30 feet closer, and I was almost under it. If I didn't have a fence there, I would have. And I stood on our diving board and I'm looking at it. And I hear something, and I can see that underneath, on the very bottom, there was a black circle. Like if you're looking at a globe, maybe the size of Antarctica. And something in my head, which I at the time thought was my thought, said, don't get under it. Dangerous, could be dangerous. Don't be under it. And so I backed away. But I don't think it was me that told me to do that. At this point, when I started writing all of this down, I was forced to confront what I was feeling at every step of this. And there was no adrenaline rush from me. There was no fear. There was no adrenaline. What does it take to have an adrenaline rush if not this? But I had a sense of calm, ridiculously so. And all that was left was curiosity. And that's when I walked, almost got under it, heard a voice say, "Don't, back up." And then I started to come out of it a little more. I was being manipulated, like I had been my whole life. But now I was coming clear. maybe they were extended too many ways, trying to return him and deal with us, all these witnesses. But then I got angry. Eh, I got very fucking angry because it was clear now. I thought it was maybe a ship that was just, we were just lucky to see it pass by. Well, it wasn't passing by. We were the fucking destination, and it's hovering over us right now. And you can feel that there's an intelligence in it. And I was angry. And I thought, you know what? This could go south any second. This could be it for me. This could be it. Zaps us, takes us. Nobody would ever fucking know. They'd think it was Somali pirates or, Antifa or the far right that grabbed us. They'd make some cover story. So I got angry, and now I was feeling the adrenaline. I really was. And I thought, well, if this is it for me, I'm going out like a fucking Irishman. And I stood up as tall as I could in my pseudo cop uniform and fake leather flat soled shoes. And I stood there on the sidewalk next to our pool, and I raised my right fist and I extended it at the craft. And I raised my middle finger right at it. I am angry. I'm angry because they think they can, whoever these things are in there, they think they can do this? Show up at our goddamn house at a picnic and fucking sit there like like uh like stalkers or peepers? What the fuck? Is this that's what I thought. This is an invasion. What are they gonna do? I extended my middle finger at the craft and I said the first words that have been spoken in like 7 minutes since my mom said, well, I don't know what it is. I said, top of my lungs, fuck you. And I shook my fist with all the impotent rage of a mouse with his leg in a trap. And at that point, I said, I am going to get Sean. Because suddenly, after I said that, there's one more step before I get Sean. There was a bit of an escalation because all of a sudden, it was not a silver craft anymore. I mean, it was. But on that black band in the center, a red circle light came on. And it slowly went around the perimeter of the craft. It disappeared off the right side. And a few seconds later, it came back left side and did it again. And so now I'm thinking, well, this is no balloon. This thing's mechanical. This was the first time I'd seen evidence of, some kind of power or electricity or something with it. And it went around again. And then quicker and quicker. And by like the fifth rotation, it was spinning like a one of those fireworks wheels at a fair or 4th of July celebration, and the whole craft lit up. The whole goddamn thing from top to bottom as this red, orange, pink, like a road flare. It lit up like a fucking road flare. You know that bright magnesium little needles of light that come off a flare. The whole craft was covered with it. But the peaks on the flare, they kinda didn't waver. They didn't shoot off sparks. They just kind of flowed out like it was a super slow motion picture of the fucking sun. These little fingers of light. I remember all the details. It wasn't like it was like it came up to a peak, each little one, from a curve to a peak, like a like a shark's tooth, but thinner and thousands and thousands. And the whole thing was just a flame. And I thought to myself in the moment, oh, thank Christ that I got to see it before it was like this, because I never would have said flying saucer. I wouldn't know it was even a chrome ship. I thought it was a fucking fireball at that point. And it was at that point that I I gotta get Sean. He's got a gun. Who knows where this is fucking going up? I gotta get him. And I ran for the steps, and I'm on the steps, and I've got one foot in the door to the kitchen, and something stopped me. Wait! You'll never get to see this again. You can't just walk inside. And I'd fallen for it once, and I said, fuck this. Ran through the kitchen, pounded down the 12 steps to the basement bedroom where my brother was sleeping. And I was about to fling his door open. Anybody would. Throw the door open. There's a fucking crazy flying saucer on fire outside, you know? But something said in my head at the bottom of the stairs, no, don't open his door. You will wake him up in a shock, and he has a gun, and he will shoot you. He will shoot you dead. Don't do it. Don't open the door. And that wasn't my thought, but it was in my head. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I suppose he could. And it wasn't true. I knew it wasn't true. He doesn't sleep with his gun under his fucking pillow like Big Pussy or Tony Soprano. It's locked up in his closet. But something said, don't do it. Don't open the door. So instead, I pounded on the door with fist 5 times. Bam, 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 bam. Any harder would have just broken through that particle board. And I said, Sean, you got to get up. There's a flying saucer outside. Come on, it's a UFO. Get up, Sean. Pow, 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 pow. And from Sean's perspective, he was in the craft looking down at us in the pool a minute before. He was in the craft, and he could see the reflection in the water of the craft all lit up. Pinkish, rose, orange, road flare style. He could see the reflection of that on the water. And of course, he's under control on the ship, but he's looking out at us in itself. But we didn't see that. We saw, just chrome and then a fireball. And he told the aliens, oh man, I want to go down there. I want to go down to that pool, by the pool. And they said, well, he put me down there. And they said, well, no, you can get up and go there, but we need to put you in bed. And the next thing he knows, he's teleported into the dark bedroom in the basement. And these aliens were taller. They were tall because they were kind of carrying Sean like a drunken friend, where you've got one arm over your shoulder, each of you, as he's staggering him to bed, as he's dragging his feet, sedated. And he turns to thank one of the Greys, and the Grey ignores him. So he turns to thank him again. No, really, thanks. I appreciate it. And he's like, yeah, all right. And it was at that point the other one says, he's coming. We're going to get caught. And the other one's like, no, not yet. He's not. Something like that. No, not yet. He isn't coming yet. I'm not sure of the exact words they told him there, but Sean is. And they plop Sean in bed. And Sean says, wait, who's coming? And Sean says he'd never seen them scared before. They were upset. They were scared. They were going to get caught. They said they were going to get caught. The one did, and the other one said, no. So Sean said, wait, who's coming? And he sits up. And they looked at him both with their, telepathic, dead, open eye mind control powers, and looked at him and said, go to sleep. And thump, he puts his head back. But in that instant, I'm pounding on the door. Pow, pow, pow. Sean, there's a flying saucer outside. And Sean, because he didn't get to sleep, he remembers thinking, he said, yeah, they were just here. They were bringing me back. And he says to this day that he said it to me, but he spoke it in his mind, because rather than out loud. And anyway, he got up eventually, a couple of minutes. I ran back up. The craft had now moved away. It was done. They brought him back. So it had moved over to the next street and was ambling its way, you know, east out to where it's more desolate. Just, and it was no longer like it was no longer lit. It was a saucer again, but it was turned sideways like a fucking wheel or an actual yo-yo. Then, the way we look at discs being flat, being parallel to the ground. It was perpendicular. It was going away. So Sean comes up. His girlfriend had arrived because she was invited to the thing, and she saw the thing up there, and he got into a panic. And then Sean's upstairs, but he wasn't really. Sean was wincing in pain. He's out in the bright daylight, and he's having trouble following the conversation or concentrating. And I'm like, Sean, it was the thing. He's like, okay. Like and I thought, poor Sean, I woke him up. And maybe he didn't get enough sleep. But he'd been down there plenty. He was shaking off the whole thing. He was dealing with being awake and remembering. And I said, let's get in your car. Let's get in your car. Let's get in your Corvette. We'll chase it out Route 29. I saw the way it went. We got to go see. We got to go see. And so we hop in the car and we drive. I said, you wouldn't believe it. It was a flying saucer. I couldn't believe it, Sean. And that's when he said to me, yeah, they were bringing me back. And, my first reaction was, I woke him up too soon. He's blending his dreams with what we're doing here. And this is what an idiot I was and how disconnected I was from the whole scene. I said to him, no, 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 Sean. Uh, Nothing like that. I mean, no, no, no. We're not talking about aliens and abductions. I'm just talking about there was a flying saucer hovering over the house for 7 or 8, 9 minutes. That's all. Like there was some huge disconnect between those two things. Looking back on it, I sounded like half the assholes in ufology who are only interested in seeing the crafts. They don't want to talk abductions. Oh, we don't do that. I was one of those in that moment, but I was unconnected. And then Sean said, no, it was the aliens that were bringing me back. And at this point, oh boy, it was a heartbreaking moment because suddenly I was scared that Sean was mentally ill. That, and Sean, he's a cop. He's a fucking rock. He's fought his way out of being attacked by 3 people, even though one of them tore his arm out of his shoulder and he had to fight one-handed. He threw one of them off a goddamn balcony, second floor balcony, onto a lawn because it was a matter of his, life. Sean was tough. Sean is tough. He's the rock in the family. Rational, solid, and quick to act. He's a man of actions. And all of a sudden, he's telling me that aliens were bringing it back as we're driving in a beautiful Stingray. And I was scared. I really was. Because I've known we have cousins who both sons became schizophrenic. And it's their lives, their parents' lives. It just takes over and it's horrible. And I was so scared in that moment that was Sean. And oh my God, the man we all rely on. I didn't know what to do or say. And he said, "Don't they taken you too?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, my poor brother, my poor mom. Is he gonna be able to be a cop still? Is what?" And then he said, "Don't you remember the time mom screamed, they came back. Why do they have to come back? Why do they always have to come back?" And Sean was only halfway into that quote when I joined in and we answered it. We repeated it in chorus. And that was it. That was the fucking moment. Um, like I say, have you ever seen a movie where some character sees something crazy and like it zooms in on him or the background comes rushing up while the focus is on the character and his moment of shock revelation? That was me. Thank God I wasn't driving because it hit me like like a metal boot in some place that would hurt. It was just a shock. And like I say, it was like somebody threw a bowling ball through the windshield of the car we're in, and it just hit my skull and shattered the hold and jarred loose all these little pieces of my life that I had forgotten, that I wasn't able to think about. There they were again, like finding a notebook from fifth grade, but that diminishes it. It was all there, and that was it. And over the course of a week, 10 days, one after the other, after the other, after the other, and I remember them. I remember them. I remember them today as much as I remember, my 30th birthday. All those moments, except of course the very early ones when I was like 3 are blurry as anyone's memories from when they were 3. But the rest of them, through school, through college, through being out on my own, bam. And it had the same thing happen for Sean. And mom was suddenly able to breathe a sigh of relief. And it wasn't just her secrets anymore. And the whole thing caused mom to shake loose quite a bit, and then dad. And suddenly we're like in that when you're in the game when you're locked in a escape room. Suddenly we're all going over all the clues together for the first time, and we're piecing the puzzle together, and you can imagine the emotions. So I didn't want to go off, but I went way off. I'm sorry, Kraft, but I wanted to give you a detailed account of that day. I put him to sleep. I'm sorry about that, but that's it. That's what happened.